Howdy, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Halo Hot Take Hoedown. Me, Fernando, the Lone Star Halo. This is Cowboy Vince. We are going to talk about all things good in these here parts. We're going to talk about MatthewLugo. Has he earned a spot? Is he part of the future? Maybe he's even part of the young core. All that and more coming up after this.
Texas plains, hot takes flying right off the reins. Lone Star Halo, Cowboy Vince, calling it bold, never on the fence. Hoedown time, turn it up loud. Hot takes are ringing, drawing a crowd. No matter how wild, no matter how strange, ain't no limit on the takes we say.
Coming to you live from the Lone Star State, and Vince, of course, from Anaheim, holding it down on the West Coast. Vince, how are you today? How do you like the intro video?
You know what? I'm actually shocked that I saw that picture. I don't know where Randy got it, but I remember now, actually. But I love it. So heck of a job that with that intro, and I like it. It mixes a little bit of the cowboy culture, and you know what? I saw some baseball references in there. You know what? Hey, I think I'm starting a new culture, even though it's really common in at Braves games, from what I hear. It's common in Astros games, and it's definitely common at Ranger games. You know firsthand for sure, front row seat and center.
So are you tipping your cap to Randy for the intro video?
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to this week's episode of the Hot Take Hoedown. We are going to get to this week's hot take. But before we do that, it does have to do with MatthewLugo. We'll get to the exact verbiage of it, but we want to see where exactly he's going to fit in the long-term plans of the Angels. Is he part of it? Is he just kind of a stopgap guy? We're going to get to all that. But right now, I want to talk a little bit about the series we just came off of and really the road trip. What a phenomenal road trip by the Angels. We should be talking about a team that did win the series against the Padres. They did lose. They won one out of those three games. But let's just say Fernando Tatis strikes out there. All of a sudden, we're talking about a team that won a series against the Padres. One bad pitch from Kenley Jansen is all it took for the Padres to lose that series and the Angels to be coming off of back-to-back series wins in convincing fashion. The Padres are not a slouch team. Are they slumping right now? Absolutely. They've lost 6 straight games. All is not well in San Diego, okay? And if you want to hear more about the Padres, we did just do an episode with Hacksaw. Sorry to plug that, but go ahead and listen to that if you want to hear a little bit about that series. Then we came off of the Dodgers series. We swept the Dodgers, Vince. It was incredible. You were sounding off in the Facebook Messenger group. You were happy about it.
Yeah, because I always take Angel-Dodger games personally. I think all of us do, mainly because I have family that are big-time Dodger fans. They grew up in Pico Rivera, and also my dad and my uncle, they grew up Dodger fans because they grew up in the 60s. And in the 60s, the Angels were not the franchise to basically get excited about. Number one, we were an expansion franchise. And number two, we weren't winning. We weren't going to the playoffs, and it's a lot of SoCal fans figured, well, there's this team in Los Angeles that wins a lot of games, and they've won championships. They got the best lefty of all time, Sandy Koufax. They got one of the best righties of that generation in Don Drysdale. So why not root for this team? So it makes sense. So me growing up in Anaheim, of course, it was the Angels and the Ducks. I was given 2 teams already. And, I mean, like I said, I take every Angel-Dodger game personally. And when I found out just this whole weekend, just every single game, it was just great to watch and great to see everything. It was a little nerve-wracking, even especially the Saturday game. And I think referring to the group message, I won a little side hot take. It was just really quick. I definitely was easily the game of the year for sure. And if you watch MLB Network, I watch it religiously. I look forward to top 10 MLB Network games of the year. And there has been times where we've been unlucky and featured on that show on the losing side. So therefore, in the group chat between all of us, and the fans should hear this too, I said, if the Dodgers won that game, it's easily a top 10 MLB Network game. However, we won. I guarantee you MLB does not care about that game because, number one, we won, and number two, the MLB is all about a big market. It's a big market business, and it makes sense. Los Angeles and New York is what they depend on. We are Los Angeles' second team. Actually, we don't even consider us Los Angeles. We are Orange County, but to be fair, Orange County is considered LA market in marketing purposes, but that's a different topic. Anyway, so yeah, MLB depends on those two cities, and then they also depend on Chicago too. They want one of the Chicago teams to be relevant, and mainly the Cubs. But yeah, that was just so fun to watch, and just biting my nails the whole time, and just edge of the seats. That is what you want in baseball. But unfortunately, it's even tougher when you have to do it against the boys in blue. And for us to get away with that, to go through that victory, that meant a lot. And what I noticed is that there's a lot of fight in this team, regardless of how young they are. I mean, I knew for sure that seeing the attitude of that team, the young guys came in like, look, we know they're defending champs. We know they're the best team in the league. We know they spent $1 billion every single year just to be the best team and get to the championship, to get to the World Series, and possibly win the next 5 championships like the Golden State Warriors tried to do in their era. It didn't happen, of course, but you get my reference. But the young players just figured, look, let's just have fun. Okay, like you're playing at Dodger Stadium. You're facing 3 of the best players in the league with Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. And for you to sweep them, man, those kids they want to climb on that high horse, but they really shouldn't yet because, well, number one, they're young, and number two, you don't want to get too cocky and you don't want to be full of yourself. But the sweep against the A's might be otherwise. And I'm just glad that they're still hot.
Yeah, I'll say this. You beat the Dodgers 3 games in a row. Maybe you caught lightning in a bottle, right? And we saw that. That's what all the fans were saying. Like, oh, well, we'll see what happens against the Athletics. Okay, well, now the Angels beat the Athletics. And like I said, there is definitely it's not even an argument to be made. They should have won that series against the Padres. Game 2, I don't think Fernando Tatis beat the Padres. I think the Angels, so I don't think Fernando Tatis Jr. beat the Angels. I think the Angels beat themselves. Kenley Jansen made a very bad throw there. And, whatever, Tatis was sitting on a breaking pitch right in the zone. The cutter's coming from Kenley, right? That's his pitch. Left it out there too much. Tatis is a good hitter. Okay, 1 bad pitch is all it took. And because of that, it kind of put a little bit of a bad taste in our mouth from that first series, but they responded well against the Dodgers. Those were 3 very competitive games, very good games. The Dodgers were fighting back. The Angels team of last year would have completely folded, right? They wouldn't have fought themselves back in those games. Same with the Athletics, right? Today, and we are recording this on the day, the final game of the series, the Angels won 10-5. The Angels were losing, but bases were loaded. Taylor Ward hit a grand slam, and that just injected life into this team. In the 9th inning, they added some more insurance. And Vince, this team is just playing good baseball right now. There isn't any facet of the game that isn't clicking for them. Kyle Hendricks in his last start wasn't great, okay? But overall, the starting pitching has done well enough to keep the Angels in all the games, right? Aside from that Kyle Hendricks start, I can't think of any during this stretch here that have been atrocious by a starting pitcher. The bullpen's doing just enough to keep the Angels in these competitive games. And I'm going to give Perry his flowers because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, Halos in the outfield. Those guys are so negative over there. Halos in the infield, sorry. are so negative over there. They don't have all they do is talk trash about the team. Okay, I will say this: Perry Manassian has done a great job of rebuilding this bullpen on the fly, because right now there's been a pretty good amount of injuries to the bullpen, right? And they're having to figure it out on the fly. Robert Stevenson's waiting in the wings. Hunter Strickland just got signed on a minor league contract. He's now up with the big club and already making a positive impact so far. So with that being said, man, Perry is having to build the plane as it's in flight already. And right now, they're bandaging just enough to keep the bullpen together. You know, the ship was starting to sink a little bit because we were all down in the dumps about a week ago about this. Oh, man, the season's already over. We're cooked already. But Perry said, not so fast. And he got the mighty putty, put it on the holes in the boat. And Vince, dare I say, the boat's sinking, or not sinking, the boat's floating again. The boat is stable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I think one thing to consider is that the bullpen, I think, is a little bit more confident. I think they figured that this was going to be a high leverage week. Like I said, we talked about this last week. It was the tested weekend or week for this team. How is the offense going to respond? How is the bullpen going to respond? How the defense and everything? And yeah, we had our bad game, that game 2 against the Padres, which probably could have easily sunk in the ship or started even going down a little more. But it just was a little bit of a reset. I think the day off on Thursday helped them a little bit. And then also, I think showing no fear against the Dodgers was also a big part of it, because you can't show fear in anything. I mean, you make a reference to the 2002 team when they faced the Yankees in the division series. The Yankees were coming off 4 trips to the World Series. They were looking for another championship going into 2002. They were hungry because they were still pissed off about the loss in Game 7 to the Diamondbacks the year prior. So the Yankees were just going all in into that 0-2 season. But if you watch those games again, you watch Game 1 of that division series at Yankee Stadium, not one sight of fear were in the eyes of that team. And you know that it was a scrappy bunch and it was young. You had Eckstein and Erstad. They were still in their primes or about to hit their peaks. But the one thing that they had in common was that, look, it's Yankee Stadium. It's the cathedral of October baseball. I get it. But it's like, you know what? It's just another game of baseball, even though the stakes are a lot higher. That's exactly what this past weekend was all about. This was a playoff atmosphere team and a playoff atmosphere stadium, and we talk about all the time. Every time you go into Dodger Stadium, it's going to be a playoff atmosphere, regardless of what team you are. Even the Marlins, when they came out here, they knew that it was a playoff atmosphere because it's the best team in the league right now. And it just what I liked is the Angels came in and said, look, yeah, it's the Dodgers, but guess what? It's another opponent. It's a new day. It's baseball, and it's May too. We're not playing in October. We're not playing for our lives right now. We're playing to have fun and to get back on a roll that we haven't had since the beginning of the season. And you need to get that feeling back. But you also have to remember, you gotta face those challenges. Those like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, cakewalks. Yeah, they exist, but they really don't exist because not every team, whether it be the worst team in the league, is a cakewalk. And then some people think, well, if you face the best team, it's going to be a rough road. Well, you need that rough road. You need that challenge. It's just like in life. You know, you take in college courses, when you get to finals week, that's a challenge that you need to do. And if you accomplish that challenge, guess what? If it's your freshman year and you accomplish it, you got to do it again next year. That's the same thing with what happened this past weekend. Game 1 was a challenge. You know what? We get to do this again tomorrow, which was even a bigger challenge because you face Clayton Kershaw, who hasn't lost a game against us. And then, yeah, he came back from his injury and his rehab, but still, it's Clayton Kershaw. He knows how to figure it out, and he figured it out after that first inning. And then Sunday, you're facing Tony Gonsolin, who, you know, has his days, but he was a little bit sloppy, but also, too, Yusei Kikuchi was on his game, and he was the topic of the month of May. My hot take's looking good. Only difference is he hasn't still won a game. The offense
It's
and
not him, though.
it's not him. It's the bullpen had their moments, but you know what? He is looking like the best pitcher. I still think he is. He's got one or two more starts, I believe, to end the month. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, he's going to get that win eventually. I think just the offense needs to score 10 runs for him to get that win.
Yeah, and even that might not be enough with his luck so far. But he's been pitching magnificently as of right now. Your hot take is looking good, so fingers crossed that if his maybe 2 more starts this month. I didn't look to see how many potential games he has left. It's going to be 1 or 2 more. But yeah, he's been pitching very good. Another guy, part of the rotation, giving the Angels a chance every 5th day. Now, Vince, I have a question for you. Do you know the last time the Angels won 7 straight games in a row?
I would have to say 2010 maybe, or I mean, we came close last year when we had 6, but go ahead.
It was 2022, September 25th to October 2nd. They swept the A's and they swept the Rangers. So that was So 2022 was the last time. And in the last decade, the Angels have only won 7 games in a row twice, 2022 and obviously 2025. So that shows you just how rough of a decade it's been. Because, I mean, think about it. A 7-game winning streak. I'm not going to say that's not nothing, right? I mean, like you said, these are still major league teams you're competing. Even if you face the Rockies, who right now by far are the worst team in Major League Baseball where we currently sit. If you face them 7 games in a row, chances are they're going to win 1, right? Because they are a major league team. You can never discount a professional team. So with that being said, the fact that in a decade we've only won 7 games in a row twice is pretty telling on how this franchise has been the last decade. It's been a lot of darkness, unfortunately. But they're playing good baseball right now. I'm loving everything I'm seeing. The offense is clicking in all cylinders. And they're all just finding ways to win, right? Taylor Ward has been phenomenal, but, you're getting production from Neto is still on fire. Hoppy's been on fire. At least he's starting to heat up this series against the A's, and hopefully he can carry it over. Nolan Chanuel, don't sleep on him. The point is, these are members of the young core, right? When we're thinking about the future window of this team opening, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I still don't think this is a playoff team. If this is a playoff team, will I celebrate? Of course. Am I going to buy all the playoff merch? Of course. But I'm not naive. I don't think this team's going to make the postseason. And gosh, I'm hoping I'm wrong. But the point is, their window's not supposed to open until maybe next year. For sure, 2027. So with that being said, don't rock the boat. Don't do anything stupid. If let's just say we keep contending, let's just say we're at the trade deadline and we are within 3 games, or hell, but if we're in second place and we're like a game or 2 back, I don't do anything. That's probably a hot take for another week, but my hot take right now is don't fix what's not broken. This team's not supposed to contend. If they sneak their way into the playoffs, you know what? Maybe they're the 2023 Texas Rangers. The 2023 Texas Rangers were not supposed to contend. They snuck their way in, and Vince, you know as well as I do, if you make the dance, you never know what'll happen.
Exactly, and we might have to save that trade talk till July. So
we need content.
We'll save it for July.
Content. We need content. But
yeah,
I did mention the young core, and speaking of the young core, there's no piece of the outfield that's locked in long term besides Mike Trout, of course. So this week's hot take had to do with Matthew Lugo. Vince, do you happen to have that hot take in front of you?
Yes, the hot take of the week is Matthew Lugo has earned a spot as an everyday player in the Angel roster. So he's earned that 25th, 26th man. I think it's 20, still back to 25 or 26.
Yep.
Is it 26? Okay, just want to confirm that. So we have had a history of calling up guys at the right time, and we've had Of course, Mike Trout was probably started the trend back in 2011 when he got called up at the end of the season. And then before you knew it, could have been the opening day starter in 2012. But unfortunately, he had that illness in spring training where he lost, I think it was like 20 pounds. And then he had to gain all that back. And then before you knew it, he came back. He came in May and took the league by storm. And then everybody was saying, okay, this kid is for real right now. And obviously he's still with us to this day. And then you look at other history we've had. Joe Adele, of course, in 2020, who was our number one prospect around that time. And he had an okay 2020, but he had some mishaps, but shortened season probably affected it. We never got a full season out of him. 2021, he had his moments still, but just up and down, up and down. And then this year, we've had the surprise as well with Kyron Paris. He comes in and took not just the Angels by storm, but the league by storm. People were thinking, man, like, who is this kid? And even though he did get his feet wet last season, but now this year he's been proven to be a full-time player with a little help of some injuries, unfortunately, with Mike Trout being out. That gives Kyron Paris the opportunity, but it also gives MatthewLugo an opportunity. Now, first things first, I did see this kid in spring training, and I saw that he was an outfielder, which was great to hear that, but we were at the point where the outfield was kind of stacked at some point because we had Ward, we had Trout, we had Soler who could platoon, then we had Adele, and then Moniak. And I'm thinking, okay, well, with MatthewLugo, this kid might not get a chance this year, but then once the release happened of Moniak, then that changed everything. And then I didn't hear much about MatthewLugo after that, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll wait and see what happens. But once his name got mentioned in the call-up, then I thought, you know what? I do remember this kid in spring training, and it was fun to watch him play, tracking balls down, just hitting the ball really hard and getting on base, and just a true center fielder, in my opinion. Speed, power, what we have in today. I mean, back in the day, obviously center fielders were just speedsters and could get on base and steal second. But now we're in the generation of, well, the center fielders are kind of the everything. It's the same thing with the shortstops. You have to be able to hit for power. You have to be able to hit for contact. And you also have to get on base and this, that. You literally are a five-tool player. And it wasn't common back in the day for those respective positions. So MatthewLugo is showing that he is a five-tool player. And he easily is a young core player with Ohapi, with Neto, with Shonowell, because I believe in the whole thing of the core four. It's one of my sayings. Every team needs to have a core four that you can build around in the future. When Mike Trout was around, when he started, we really didn't have a core four. And if we did, it was veterans. It was Pujols, it was Hamilton, Trout, and then maybe Trumbo. But then Trumbo became a trade piece. So that affected us a little bit, and that's why we struggled at the tail end in that decade. So now
the best you could have said, Trout, Pujols, Andrelton Simmons, and Calhoun was maybe the thought, and I mean that was pretty far-fetched.
Yeah, but it affected us a little bit. So now we're finally figuring out that you really do need a core for, and you can't depend on just two guys. And we dealt that for 6 seasons at one point with Trout and Ohtani. Now it's like, well, you need more than that. And to see that the missing piece that's coming in, yeah, there's an argument that it could be Kyron Paris too. It's a mix between Paris and Lugo. But I mean, Lugo, I believe, has earned it. The only thing that I have a little bit of an issue with is that every player goes through peaks and valleys. Right now, MatthewLugo is at a peak. The question is the valley going to hit, or when is the valley going to hit? It could happen next week. It could happen next month. It could happen in July, later in the season. You never know. And I think the reason why a lot of players go through that is they get called up. When the players get called up, you got to remember, they're the hottest player at that time in AAA. They're seeing the ball good, they're hitting the ball good, and that's what managers are looking at when they get the minor league reports. Like, hey, who's the hottest hitter right now? Oh, it's this kid. Okay, we're gonna call him up, see how he does. And some guys it carries over. Sometimes it doesn't because the fastballs are faster, the sliders slide harder, and the breaking balls break harder. So I am hoping that he does live up to his potential and he still continues to be on that streak. But also, you got to take into consideration, every player has a bad day. Every player has a bad week. He had 4 strikeouts not too long ago this week. And, you see that and you think, dang, he had 4 strikeouts, and it hits you as a fan. But you got to remember, it's baseball. That is the one thing that needs to bring you down to earth just for a little bit. You have to be humble in this sport. That was probably his humble moment right there. So he needs that because he has to be able to adjust to that. Yeah, he has an 0 for 4 game, but guess what? The next day, how are you going to respond to that? Are you still going to think about it, or are you going to move on and have an electric type of night? And he's done that.
Yeah, going on a good offensive run or even a good defensive run, where you're catching everything that comes your way defensively. You're making all the stops, helping your team get some of those defensive run saves. You're having timely hits. That stuff doesn't make you a major leaguer, right? Because anybody can catch lightning in a bottle once in any sport, right? Don't believe me? Ask Jeremy Lin, right? Guy had a Linsanity run. Baseball players have these Linsanity runs. That doesn't make you a major leaguer. What makes you a major leaguer is those cold streaks, like you said. Those valleys. What's going to happen when, it's been a week and you haven't gotten a hit? That's what differentiates guys from AAA and Major League. Because like you said, there's guys like, for instance, Joe Adell, right? Every time the Angels would send him down, he would hit, hey, all we ever heard, hey, Joe Adell hit another home run. Joe Adell another home run. And it's like, great, okay, but every time he comes to the major leagues, he can never put it together. Last year, he had over 20 home runs, so we finally saw that power transfer over. And, it took quite a while to finally happen. So Joe Adell took that next step, which is great. Not everyone does that. A lot of guys need that 4A, right? You know what I mean? They're better than AAA, but they're not quite major leaguers. They need like that 4th A, and it just doesn't exist. You can either put it together at the major league level or you can't. So with that being said, MatthewLugo, he's doing pretty well right now. We'll go over his numbers. When he got called up from the minors, through 151 at-bats in the early going, he had 32 hits, 4 home runs, 18 RBIs. Vince, he was batting .212 with an on-base percentage of .292. Not very good, batting average-wise. Now, here in the major league so far, through 33 at-bats, very small sample size, folks, very small. 5 runs, 9 hits, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, batting .273, and his on-base percentage is .294. So, I personally think, and it's not for the reason why some of you might think, I think MatthewLugo has earned an opportunity to start the bulk of the remainder of these games. And here's why. You need to know what you got in this kid, right? He's 24 years old, still young. So the Angels are in a position where they have to make a decision on Joe Adell sooner rather than later, right? Is Joe Adell just a guy? Because he's not going to be the guy. I don't see it anymore. Can he hit 20 home runs? Of course, we saw that. Can he provide serviceable defense? Of course, we saw that last year, right? He's a Gold Glove finalist. But he isn't a consistent hitter at the major league level right now. 20 home runs is great. But when you're batting .220, Vince, I'm willing to give up some power for you to bat at least .250. You know what I mean? .220 nowadays just doesn't cut it, in my personal opinion. If I'm the GM, if I'm a scout looking at talent, that's what I'm looking at. I want the bulk of my hitters to bat .250. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're a power guy, Jorge Soler, he's going to bat .240. Okay. There's a time and a place where .240 is acceptable for some guys. So MatthewLugo needs to get the opportunity to fail at the major league level because he needs to sink or swim. We are early on in his major league career right now with the Angels. Great. Give him to the All-Star break. Okay. Let's just say he's struggling. He's not figuring it out. maybe that's what makes the decision. Let's send him down. But if he's in a position right now where he's going to start a couple games here, a couple games there, he's not going to be able to get in a groove. And then we're wasting up this call-up opportunity, right? You use one of his options for no reason. And B, what's the worst case situation, right? I mean, the team's winning right now. But once again, even if they start losing, they're not supposed to contend anyway. So let's see what we got. Let's see if this kid's real. And let's see if he's going to be a legitimate piece of this long-term puzzle. Because right now, we don't have any long-term outfielders. I say all the time, in my opinion, the Logan O'Hoppe trade, was it good? Sure. But it's still a C move. We needed a catcher. Logan O'Hoppe's that catcher. Good franchise cornerstone player. But man, Vince, we could also use Brandon Marsh right now. So that's why it's kind of a C. It's like, okay, great. You got Logan O'Hoppe, but you also gave up on Brandon Marsh. We kind of need a long-term center fielder right now. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what happens, it's going to be a win-win for both sides, sure. But because of that trade, we need to find somebody to take that piece that was supposed to be Brandon Marsh, that center field role. Maybe it was supposed to be Adele. We're finding out right now, maybe it won't be. So put Lugo there, see if he fits, see if he is going to be part of this long-term piece. Because if he is, Vince, we have a situation. We got Logan O'Hoppe, you got Shanuel, you have Christian Moore at some point coming up to play second base. You have Neto, third base. Still going to be a bit of a question mark long-term going forward for now. And then you have Trout at right, and you have Lugo in center. Great. You have a third base hole to fill and a left field hole to fill. That's what free agency is for. Free agency isn't for, hey, let's build a whole team via free agency. This isn't MLB The Show. It's for, we have two holes to fill. Let's go out there, sign two dudes who are serviceable, and help this team out.
Well, I would say too, I like I like the breakdown that you have of positions, but I think left field there. I mean, you did mention like there's not that many long-term outfielders. I think you forgot Nelson Rada is a good example too.
He's still young. I mean, he's 19 years old, and I liked what I saw of him in spring training. I loved his speed, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do. But we can't count him as part of this core just yet, or even a piece of the puzzle till at least 2027, in my opinion. But, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope this kid gets an opportunity because he was fun to watch this spring.
Yeah, and you make a good point. Maybe in a couple of years, and I think you do have a point for sure. I'll agree with that. But if you do get that free agent hole in left field, like, how long do you do it? Like, do you do it for 2 years? Do you do it for 3 years? Like,
I think it depends on the player, but yeah, 2 or 3 years I think is good.
Yeah, you have to take that in consideration big time. And then third base, I mean, you can open that hole, like you said, or you fill that hole via free agency. But I think what could happen is we do have a third baseman in the minor leagues who just blossoms super quickly and figures like, oh, we got this 24-year-old third baseman who can fill in for sure. Or better yet, which is something that I've been banking on for the last few months, you put Christian Moore at third base so you can put Kyron Paris at second. Because Kyron Paris is not an outfielder. You and I both agree on it. We've been saying it for weeks. And even in our group chat that we have, we all agree Kyron Paris is not an outfielder. He's just out there in center field because he can get the playing time. So therefore, Rengifo and Tim Anderson can get their playing time at second base. So there's two options that could happen. Kyron Paris, who does have a strong arm, could convert to a third baseman. Christian Moore, who also has a strong arm, could also convert to a third baseman as well. So that's the question that you have to look into. Who is, in my opinion, who can convert to third base, number one, and number two, who is the best and the quickest second baseman between the two? Because I guarantee you that in spring training, when those two were on the same team, I guarantee you they were doing drills together. They were working on double plays at second baseman. They weren't thinking like they weren't thinking like, oh, like like we're going to compete and like this is no. They came in saying, look, it's both of us. We're going to earn a spot, but we have to help each other out get to that point. So for them to most likely work on, who can get to the ball quicker, who has the better range, who can get release the ball quicker when it comes to double plays, because it's going to be fun seeing those two turn it with guys like with Zach Neto at short, because you see Neto at short, it's fun to watch because of the cannon he has, and he's been working with the veterans, of course, with Rengifo and Tim Anderson, but it's even going to be way better when you have those two young guys. If you platoon them, I mean, that might be an option, but if you want to get these guys in the lineup full time, somebody has to step up and make that move over to third base, and it happens a lot. I mean, I learned this from former minor leaguers, and they said like a lot of second basemen and third basemen were former shortstops, and a lot of right fielders and left fielders, corner outfielders, they were former center fielders, because they're great in their positions, but the thing is those positions are always filled, so you have to be able to make the transition and say, look, I can play anywhere. You have to have those players to say like, what position do you play? And then that player says, wherever you want me to. Because there's guys out there who won't do that. But I believe that Christian Moore and Kyron Paris will for sure be in that situation. MatthewLugo might have to be in that too, but since with Trout moving over to right, MatthewLugo is going to be cemented in center field for sure. Unless in a couple years when Nelson Rada gets his opportunity, he's most likely going to be a center fielder, and Lugo might have to move over to left. And Lugo has played some left and some corner, and he's proven that he is versatile and he can play anywhere.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much in the conversation of filling in these gaps long term because, content for the future. But I will say this. I mentioned third base and left field long term as of right now, maybe being holes in the future. Rada is definitely an option. We talked a little bit about moving some of those guys over to third base to fill that gap. The good news is the Angels do have options in the organization, because this year going into free agency, there isn't a lot of options at either of those positions. Once again, I won't go too much into it. I don't want to give my opinion on, this guy will work, because that's a topic for another day. But for third base, you have Alex Bregman potentially opting out, which I know Scott Boras already alluded to. Eugenio Suarez, Max Muncy potentially opting out. And then after that, you get guys like Gio Urshela and Jose Rojas. So not a lot of options over at third base this offseason. That almost kind of marks any of those guys up. Yoan Moncada is one of the top options at third base. No disrespect to him. He's having a pretty good season so far. Honestly, I think you and I will probably agree. I think if he keeps it up, you probably need to consider moving him at the deadline, because he's on an expiring deal, right? He's doing well. His value's up. Good time to trade him. I think most Angels fans would agree with that. Outfield, just as bad. Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber. Those are the two top candidates, and they don't have anything attached to them. Now, Cody Bellinger has an opt-out. Luis Robert Jr. has a club option, and then so does Tyler O'Neill. After that, your top options are Cedric Mullins and Michael Conforto. So not a lot of options either way there. But like you said, the good news is there is options in the organization.
Yeah, and that's huge, because it's you have to be able to build for the 10-year run. I mean, we always talk about it. The window's supposed to open next year. It's going to and fully open in 2027. But you do have to build your foundation. You have to depend on that foundation. And we have the lowest farm system, but we have the worst farm system in the league. But here's the thing. Just because you have the worst farm system doesn't mean you have the right play. You don't have the right players. Because I'm going to make a quote to one of my favorite movies, Miracle. When Kurt Russell.
I love that movie.
Yeah, when Kurt Russell, who plays Herb Brooks, there's a quote where his assistant coach says, hey, like, you really don't have like the best players like on this roster that you're picking. And then and Herbert responds, I'm not looking for the best players, Craig. I'm looking for the right players. So the thing is you look at who have the teams who have the top prospects. You look at the Tigers, you look at the Mariners, of course the Dodgers, the Cubs. Just whoever was in the top 5 when it comes to prospects. Even the Yankees are kind of up there too. Yeah, they have the best players. Yeah, they have a lot of prospects that are in the top 100. Maybe they have over 6 or more, something like that. But just because that team does have the best prospects doesn't mean it's going to translate in the future. You got to remember, how are they mentally? Because mental health is the biggest thing right now, and a lot of players go through so much in the head many, many times. So you have to take that in consideration. You got to take consideration of what they're doing off the field. Are they actually getting work in, or are they partying? Stuff like that. So the thing is, yes, we do have the worst farm system in the league. But you got to remember, how are these players pushing themselves to get to the major leagues and to be the players to build a future in Anaheim? Because like I said, you have to think long term, and you look at the intangibles. I'm like, okay, how much work does this kid put in when he's on off days, kind of thing? As a manager, as Ron Washington, he should be calling down to the minors and saying, look, who's putting the extra work in on defense? Who's putting the extra work in the cages? Who's putting extra work in on the mound? You have to take that in consideration, because those kids are going to be the best, the right choices, and eventually the right players do become the best players. Mike Trout is a good example. He was the right player to get when we drafted him. And look where he is right now. Easily one of the best players of our generation. So that's what I'm hoping for. MatthewLugo right now, since he's the topic, I believe he is the right player because he did put that work in spring training. And I've heard a lot of praises about him. And it can only just keep on going. Right now, he's happy to be in the league, but he has to know as well, I have to stay here. It's one thing to make it, but it's a lot harder to stay.
Absolutely. There you go. Another week where you and I agree on the take. We had a little bit there where we didn't, and that was good. That made for some good debates. But I think you and I are kind of agreeing here. We got nothing to lose. Give this kid an opportunity, right? Let him prove that he doesn't belong, right? Or the best case scenario, he proves that he is going to be a fixture here in this lineup for a few years. And that's what we need. We need young, controllable players who are going to be part of this core. That way we don't have to risk already going out there and signing a Pujols or a Hamilton again. Why? Because, hey, we have Hamilton at home. that old meme. Hey, no, we have McDonald's at home. So, and hopefully in this case, the McDonald's at home is better.
Yeah.
So, well, that's what I got this week. Vince, you got anything else to add before we plug the socials?
Yeah. So first things first, it is Memorial Day weekend. So just give a shout out to, these are all the ones who served our country, and freedom is never free. I just have to throw it out there. And these are to all the families who have lost people in battle. This is for all of you, and of course to this great country. Thank you for the service. To quote one of my favorite songs by it's really sad, but it's Justin Moore. He says, "To the ones who didn't make it back home, it is for the veterans." Great song, definitely would listen to if you get the opportunity to. And just enjoy it. Have a safe Memorial Day weekend, everybody. But also to the ones, to the veterans. And I know I'm stuttering, but it's such a tough topic to talk about, but I do have to mention it, of course. And second thing too, of course, follow our social media at Angels_Cowboy, and enjoy this hat for a while, because felt season ends this weekend. The straw hat will start next week.
Fair enough. Well said. Happy Memorial Day to everyone. Have a safe weekend. Take a moment of silence to remember everyone. Those who gave their lives for the rest of us to have the opportunity to do silly things like a podcast, right, and everything else in between. So yes, well said on that. And also follow us on all of our social medias. Halos of the Infield. Vince already plugged his at the Angels _ Cowboy. Sorry. Subscribe if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube. Subscribe on the platform of your choice if you happen to find us here naturally. Tell your friends, give us a review, all that fun stuff. Make sure you tune into all the post-game shows. And thank you to our sponsor, 714 Tickets. Use code HITTY at checkout. That's HITI for 10% off all purchases. I promise you guys, we got the best ticketing deal in the game because everyone else says, oh, the first time you use this, you get $20 off. Who cares? Because here you get 10% off every single time, whether you're going to a concert or a baseball game. Use code HITTY, HITI. Head on over to Brewhigh and mention Halos in the Infield for drink specials. And head on over to OC Dugout for all things memorabilia. Not Underdog. Don't use Underdog. F Underdog. They are no longer a sponsor. For the record, we made the decision ourselves. On behalf of all of us here, Halos in the Infield, thank you guys. Y'all be good now. You hear?
From Anaheim down to the Texas plains, hot takes fly.